Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to graph a linear equation using a table. This is section 2.3H. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use that equation to fill in the table. Okay, so here's our equation, y equals 2x plus 5. We're going to plug in the values of x for that equation to find y. So if I have the equation y equals 2x plus 5, I'm going to plug in this value instead of x. So I have y equals 2 times -1 plus 5. When you multiply 2 times -1, you have -2 plus 5. That's 3. So now we're going to put in the next value. Let me erase this so I can have room to put in the next value. And you're going to fill in all of the values of the table that way. So now I'm going to put in y equals 2, and instead of the x, I'm going to put in the 0 plus 5. Y equals 2 times 0, which is 0, plus 5. So y is 5 when x is 0. Eventually, you can see the pattern, but let's try one more together. So this time, instead of the x, we're going to put in 1. So I have y equals 2x plus 5. So I have 2 times 1 is 2, plus 5 is 7. So if you look at the pattern, you're going up by 2 every time. So if you go up by every x that goes up by 1, the y goes up by 2, so you can fill that in. So now we're going to graph this. These are ordered pairs. So here are my ordered pairs. I have -1, 3. So I'm going to go over -1, 1, 2, 3. There's my first point. I have 0, 5, which will be right here. I have 1, 7, which will be right here. And I have 2, 9. So really, it's just giving you the points to plot. So there's my line. And if you notice, we're not just getting that upper right quadrant anymore. We're getting the whole coordinate plane. Okay, so number 2 says find the slope of the line. If you remember this magic formula, the m is the slope and the b is your y-intercept. So our slope is 2, and you see this where the m is. So before the x, or the coefficient of x. So often the letter B is used to denote y-intercept, and this is something we already know. So the y-intercept is right here, so it's 5. It's the constant, which means it's the number without a variable. All right, let's move on to the next one. So number 6 says we're going to graph this using a table. So you should always pick these numbers for now. You pick your x's. So you pick -1, 0, 1, 2. If you pick those numbers, it tends to keep your line on the graph. If you pick other numbers for your x's, it could be off the graph somewhere. So you pick your x's, okay? Then you plug them into the equation. So instead of the x, I'm going to put in the -1 that I picked, and I'm going to solve for y. So y equals -5 minus 2, which is -7. Now I'm going to plug in the next one. Y equals 5, and instead of that x, I'm going to plug in 0 minus 2. So now I have -2. Eventually, you'll see the pattern. Let's try one more. Y equals 5, and instead of the x, I'm going to put in the 1. So I have y equals 5 minus 2, which is 3. If you see the pattern, You don't have to do it, but let's plug in one more. Y equals 5 times 2 minus 2. So I have y equals 10 minus 2, which is 8. So we're adding 5 every time. Whoop, let's go back. This is an 8. So now we can plot our points. So I have -1, -7, 0, -2, 1, 3, 2, 8. There's your line. So my slope is my m, which is right here, so it's 5. My y-intercept is my b. Make sure you keep the sign because this is my starting point right here at -2. So that's my y-intercept. Number 7, we have y equals 3x plus 1. We're going to pick those same x values. Oops, there is no such thing as -0. -1, 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to plug in that -1 instead of the x. So I have y equals -3 plus 1. So y equals -2. Next, I'm going to plug in that 0 instead of the x. So now I have 1. Now I'm going to plug in 1. So y is 4. And last, unless you can see the pattern, it looks like I'm adding 3 here. So if I go up by 1s on the x, I'm going to add 3. So I have 7. So let's plot. I have -1, left 1, and down 2, 0, 1, 1, 4, 2, 7. There's my line. Make sure you use the ruler function in your notebook. So my slope is my m right here before the x, so that's 3. My y-intercept is my b, so that's 1. And look, there's my starting point, 1 on the y-axis. Okay, so now we have to graph the equation of y equals 4x. So again, we're going to pick the same values, -1, 0, 1, 2, and we're going to plug in y equals 4 times -1, which is -4. Y equals 4 times 0. So y is 0. And remember, that is an answer. That'll give us the origin there. Y equals 4 times 1, which is 4. And then y equals 4 times 2, which is 8. So let's plot this and look, see what the line looks like. 0, 0 is our origin right there. There's no b because we started the origin. 1, 4, 2, 8. Look at that. Yeah, I wish I had the ruler function that you guys have. Okay, so my slope is before my x, the coefficient of x, so it's 4, or the m. There is no b, so when there's no b, your y-intercept is 0. That means that the line crosses on the y-axis at 0 right here. All right, so this one's interesting. So we're still going to use those same values. I'm going to pick 0, 1, or -1, 0, 1, 2. And we're still just going to do it the same way. We're going to plug in, instead of the x, I'm going to plug in that -1 plus y equals 3. The goal is still the same. We want to get that y alone, so we're going to add 1 to each side. So y is 4. You just got to move a few more things around when you're formatted like this. So we're going to take the 0 and put it in. So now we have y is 3. We can see the pattern. I'm going to put in the 1 for the x. To get y alone, I have to subtract the 1. So we can see the pattern that the y's are going down by 1 when the x's are going up by 1. So we can put in that 1. Okay? It's a little harder to find the slope here. So let's plot our points and let's find the slope that way. We can't pick it off the equation because our equation is not in our y equals mx plus b format. But if we look at the line, look at our triangle. So I have down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. So our slope is -1. Okay? And if we look at the graph we drew, we cross the y-intercept at 3, +3. So that's where our y-intercept is. You don't always have to get it off the equation. You can get it off the graph too. All right, number 10. We got a fraction in here. So when you have a fraction for a slope, you want to pick different x values. You want to pick multiples of the denominator right here to make my math easier. So I'm going to pick -2, 0, 2, 4. And I'll show you why that makes it easier. So when I plug in that -2, I have 1/2 times the 2 over 1. I'm going to put it over 1. I cancel, and I end up with y equals 1 minus 2, which is -1. When I plug in the 0 for the x, I have y equals 0 minus 2, which is -2. If I plug in 2, since it's a multiple of the denominator, you can cross-cancel so much easier. So now I have y. Okay, this up here should have been -1. So this is -1 minus 2, which is -3. Sorry. So now here, this is +1 minus 2. Okay, I lost myself. Let me start from the beginning here. Let's erase this. All right. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. I'm going to be more careful here. So I have y equals -1/2 times -2 over 1 minus 2. So now I have y equals -1 minus 2, which will give me -3. There we go. Now when I plug in 0, I have that -2. There we go. Now when I plug in +2, I have 1 minus 2, which will give me -1. That's better. And when I plug in 4, +4, that's not plus, this is minus. I'm going to cancel. This 2 becomes 1, and the 4 becomes 2. So I have y equals 2 minus 2, or 0. Okay, so let's plot our points. So I have -2, -3, 0, -2, 2, -1, and 4, 0. There we go. We can use the equation again because it's in y equals mx plus b format. So my slope is the m, or 1/2, and my y-intercept on the graph here, or in the equation, is -2.